Whether or not you have a super in-depth understanding of what the circle of fifths is, we probably have all heard of it at least. And many of us probably understand that it is a device that we use to discuss the relationships between various keys. It sounds a little bit like this. Or when we condense it and just kind of put it into a back and forth motion, we usually get. It's the musical device that we use to develop all kinds of harmonic progressions. It's literally how we build a 2-5-1, which is one of the most commonly used sounds in music, and especially in jazz. In fact, we've even extended that out into like a 3-6-2-5-1. Check this out. The circle of fifths is so insanely prevalent in so many different types of music that it really brings to light a question of why not anything else? Why don't we make a circle out of sixths, for example, or minor thirds, or flat sevenths, or literally anything else? What is it about the fifth that makes it work the way that it does? To help illustrate that, let's break down what a circle of some of the other intervals would look like. Just a reminder, everything on the Cornell Music Academy is 30% off using code MUSICTHEORY30, link in the description down below. All right, let's get to it. Let's go ahead and start with the title of this video. Let's look at sixths and try to understand sixths. How about try to understand how to say sixths? So in order to do this, we're basically going to continue to find these major sixths so that we can just build them into a circle of some kind. So to make this easy, let's start on C. Well, if we took a C major scale, let's find the sixth of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there is our first sixth. Well, now we're on A, so let's think in that major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's our next one. So we go from C to A to F sharp. So now we're on F sharp. Let's find the sixth of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is already getting very weird. Wow, that's a sound. But now, something very interesting happens. And if you already know what it is, let me know in the comments below. But here we go. So now we are on E flat. Let's find the major sixth of E flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's just C. So we're done. We've now repeated ourselves. We've only played 4 different notes. We've only played C, A, F sharp, and E flat. Watch this. Let's take all of these notes and condense them into a chord. So we're gonna take our F sharp and drop it down. Then we're gonna take our E flat and drop it down. And what do we get? A C diminished chord. It's just that. So where does that leave us with some difficulty in talking about the circle of sixths? We can't get around it. We only hit 4 different notes, and that leaves a lot that we just don't cover at all. Because as we know with the diminished scale and the diminished chord, there are really only 3 of them, because if you start this on any of the degrees, it's all the same chord, right? So we have this. All of those notes are not accounted for if we use a circle of sixths. As with, there's another one. Those are also not accounted for. So literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of the notes remaining are just not accounted for if we use a circle of major sixths. So I guess that's why that probably doesn't work. All right, well, what about something else? What about minor sixths, for example? Let's just do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, make it minor. Okay, there we go. Same thing again in A flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, make it minor. There we go. Okay, how about E? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, make it minor. Oh, that's even smaller. That's it. There's 3. That's all there is. There's 3. The circle of minor sixths creates, let's drop the E down. It just creates an augmented chord. Funny enough, what is an augmented chord? Well, that's stacked major thirds. So then I guess the circle of major thirds would be equally as useless as the circle of minor sixths. There, we're done. That's the whole circle of major thirds. Fine, how about the circle of minor thirds? Well, wait a second. We just did that when we did the circle of major sixths. So see what's going on here? The circle of major sixths is equally as useless as minor thirds, just the same way that the circle of major thirds is as useless as the circle of minor sixths. Now, this may all sound confusing, but the important thing to remember is it's basically useless. And as we cover all of these different intervals that aren't really providing any useful harmonic relation between key centers, it further and further illustrates why the circle of fifths is so incredibly naturally useful. Let's dive into that in a second, but first we need to illustrate the uselessness of the circle of flat sevenths. Oh boy. Is that right? Yeah. There we go. Flat seven, flat seven, flat seven, flat seven, flat seven, and we're back to C. What did we just do? Watch this. This one's cool. Bring that down. Bring that down. Bring that down. Bring that down. We just made a whole tone scale. The circle of flat sevenths just creates the whole tone scale. The dream scene introduction. It's useless. It doesn't really tell because it leaves out the whole other whole tone scale. Whatever. We can keep going and literally cover every interval. How about, this is a good one. How about the circle of tritones? That's it. So let's use all of that to help illustrate what is truly incredible about the circle of fifths. When we divide our intervals up into perfect fifths, something unique happens. We actually hit all 12 tones. Every note is accounted for before the circle winds up back at C. And when every note is accounted for, only then does it wind up back at C, perfectly looping itself while covering every single note almost like a chromatic scale, but divvied out into this way that sounds harmonically interesting. I can just keep stacking fifths, and to a pretty far extent, it'll actually sound like a really nice chord. Check that out. You know what that is? Let's condense all of that down. Let's move this down. Let's move that down. And then from here, we went here. Here we go. That right there is the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. First fifth, second fifth, third, fourth, fifth, sixths. The first 6 degrees of that circle of fifths creates this really beautiful C major 7 sharp 11 chord, where if we divvy that out, that's a gorgeous chord. And that's literally the first 6 fifths stacked on top of each other. So it does a few things that are really pretty incredible, because all of these things naturally exist in the universe. They're all just frequency relationships, right? So in addition to covering all 12 notes, they also serve as that really useful harmonic relationship bouncing around that we can actually create chord progressions out of. A 2-5-1 is literally just moving around the circle of fifths in a counterclockwise direction. But also, watch what happens to key signatures when we place them on the circle of fifths. When we talk about the circle of fifths as being a tool to organize harmony, here's a little bit of what we mean by that. There's something that's really incredible that the circle of fifths naturally does that's just adds to the reasons that we're talking about it today, because it's so like, how does this work naturally? This is just out there in the universe. Check it out. It works like this. So depending on which direction around the circle you move, it organizes the key signatures by ascending sharps or ascending flats, or descending if you go the opposite direction. Let me show you. So at the very top, we start with C major. Now C major, of course, there's no sharps or flats. It's just all on the piano, it's just white keys. Well, as we start moving around the circle, we can go forward 1/5, which is C to G. Now if we look at the key of G major, well, G major, now we have 1 sharp in there, F sharp. Let's keep going. G, the next fifth is D. D, 2 sharps. A, 3 sharps. E, 4 sharps. B, 5 sharps. See what we're doing? G is 1, D is 2, A is 3, E is 4, B is 5. Now if we go one more, F sharp. This is 6 sharps. If we look at the enharmonic of that G flat, well, that actually has 6 flats. But check this out. As we come around the bottom of the circle, we start going up now. Watch this. So our next one is D flat. 5 flats. Move up 1 to A flat. 4 flats. 3 flats. 2 flats. 1 flat. And that brings us all the way back around to C. So this circle is this really interesting organizational tool where we're either adding flats or adding sharps or taking them away depending on what direction around the circle we're moving. So it's one of the really incredible things about the circle of fifths, the fact that such a perfect interval can work its way around all 12 keys while also serving as a way to organize all of the keys. And this becomes really useful in understanding music and especially writing and composing music. As you can see, there are so many little usages of the circle of fifths that make it extremely unique and actually really kind of amazing that it does what it does, because no other interval allows us to build this type of structure to showcase the relationship between keys. It's one of the reasons why the circle of fifths is something that gets taught in most music theory courses. Hint, hint, we're working on a new course that should come out in the early April or something around that time, we think. It's just a really great way to show the relationships between keys and to better understand how harmonic movements are often achieved and why they work as well as they do. They just lead into one another so naturally. It's something that we just don't see in any other interval. In fact, the only other way to cover, I guess there's 2 other ways to cover every note. That would be minor seconds, which is just the chromatic scale. Half steps, just going up like this. Oh yeah, of course we're gonna cover all 12 notes that way. And then also, if you go down the chromatic scale, but put each note up an octave, you get the circle of major sevenths, which is equally completely useless. The circle of fifths is such an incredible tool. It's just one of the most natural ways that we can create harmonic relationships and illustrate them. And understanding what it is and how it works is not as difficult as it might seem on the surface, just the same way that understanding how to play this instrument in general is not as difficult as it might seem on the surface. And that's why we created the Intro to Piano course, which, by the way, you can get for 30% off using code MusicTheory30, link in the description down below. There's also an Intro to Improv course and Making Sense of Modes, which will guide you all through actually understanding what modes are and how to use them. All 3 of those courses, as well as a brand new one coming very, very soon, are available at the link below for 30% off. Use code MusicTheory30. That's the best way you can support the channel, and thank you so much to all of you who've done that so far. There are so many of these little tricks and different ways that music kind of reveals a lot of naturally occurring relationships that are like, whoa, that almost feels like it was designed that way. I'm curious to know, what are some of your favorite tips and tricks with music? Let me know in the comments down below. That's gonna be all for today. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you in the next video.